So what does one make out of this ongoing crisis which appears to be brewing between the Congress and the BJP, or between the opposition parties and the BJP? Big newsmaker Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Congress MP from Kerala, joining us live. Dr. Tharoor, good evening and welcome once again, sir, to India Ahead. What's going on? What's going on, Dr. Tharoor? Here I see National Testing Agency, I see the HRD minister going repeatedly on record to say that these exams cannot be postponed, because if these exams were to be postponed, it will end up putting at risk the careers of all those individuals, all those students who are already admitted in these courses. Yet the Congress party believes that this is a wrong move. Why, Dr. Tharoor?
Very simple. I mean, the NEET and JEE exams were originally scheduled for April and May. They've been postponed twice since then because they said, oh, the COVID situation is too serious. We have 50,000 cases in the country. Today, we have 33 lakh cases in the country, 3.3 million. And you're saying, no, we'll go ahead with the exams. That makes absolutely no sense, because if it was dangerous to expose students to the risks of crowding in examination centers at that time, it is all the more dangerous today when COVID is so much more widespread in our country. And the problem of doing an in-person examination is there's a scientific consensus, Bhupen, that large events should not be held at this stage. Why are cinema theaters shut? Why are weddings restricted? How many people can attend? Why are cricket matches not being played and stadiums not being filled? Everyone is told to avoid crowds and reduce the chance for this deadly virus to spread. So public health and common sense says NEET and JEE cannot be held in person. That's why. I mean, the answer is very,
But then where do you stand, sir? But sir, look at the government response. Dr. Tharoor, look at the government response. Look at what Prakash Javadekar, for instance, Union Cabinet Minister, look at what he's saying. Prakash Javadekar is tweeting, and our producers will put that tweet up for you. Prakash Javadekar says that if the Delhi Chief Minister, who's now opposed, let's say, to the organization of these NEET and JEE exams, the Delhi Chief Minister wants to open up the Delhi Metro. The Delhi Chief Minister wants us to believe that corona cases are, well, reducing, not rising. If we want to open the Delhi Metro, if we want people to believe that corona cases are reducing, then are we not speaking in a contradictory tone when we say, no, students must not go to the exam centers, but people are welcome to go and start using the metro?
Well, I certainly don't speak for the Delhi Chief Minister. And I would argue that it
sure,
may not
but
be the
logic I'm
decision.
saying, just Prakash Javadekkar's logic, that's all I'm saying, sir.
Look, I can speak to you from my own experience. In my state of Kerala, we had the Kerala Engineering, Architecture and Medical Examinations in July. I had actually tried to persuade the Chief Minister to postpone those examinations. He didn't do it. The result was exactly what everyone feared. Large numbers of students and their parents, because these are people who are going to go to college, so they're still young, parents came with them, escorts came with them. There was a massive overcrowding at every center and a significant spike in the number of COVID cases as a result of overcrowding at these centers. Now, that was a one state, one examination. The NEET JEE examinations are on a far bigger scale. About 25 lakh students are already registered. It may go up even more. And this, therefore, portends a very dire situation where if we conduct them next week, as the current plan is, it's really, really going to risk a very serious spread of illness for everyone around the examination centers, whether students, exam takers, invigilators, teachers, or the parents. Now, my suggestion is indeed a postponement, and I, at the same time, want the government to use the postponement. Let's say you postpone it until just after Diwali, November. If you're not able, if COVID still hasn't changed by then, you cannot have this. You use this interim time to prepare an alternative solution. And I have publicly suggested an alternative solution, Bhupen, which is that you should actually ensure an examination is created for at home, for students to take the exam at home. In other words, they can take the exam in the safety of their own homes.
Sir, you're Dr. Tharoor, I mean, you've been exposed, Dr. Tharoor, to the world's finest education institutions. Yeah, you can't overturn the situation overnight, no, sir.
No, so it won't be overnight. This is now coming up to the end of August. The next viable date would be, say, November. If by then COVID is not gone, you've got 2.5 months right now to prepare an alternative that comes in. What's the alternative? You create a different test from the normal NEET JEE, because the NEET JEE also, of course, assumes that people's People don't have any materials with them in the exam centers. They have to come up with good recall of facts. Their memory is tested. Those things will be impossible if you're doing at home because they can look up books at home and you'll never know. So the best answer is to create a test which moves away from an emphasis on memory-based questions to actual challenges of logic, of synthesizing facts, of analysis.
But
and
sir, that's a
those
long-term
tests
solution.
Can be created.
But that's a long-term
No,
solution. Dr. Tharoor, how are you going to be in a position, sir? How are you going to be in a position to do this in 2 months, sir? If you were telling me that this was in 2021, maybe I would have agreed with you.
No, in 2 months you can do it. If necessary, you can go to foreign countries which have different testing standards, see how their tests for these subjects are conducted, take some of their more logical, analytical questions and create some of your own. 2 months is a long time to create an exam paper, Bhupen. I don't buy the argument that it can't be done. I know it's a challenge for the examiners because they are used to doing what they've done for generations. And it'll also pose some difficulties to students who spend so far preparing for the exam in the traditional way. But in the pandemonium of the pandemic, we're questioning all our assumptions anyway, Bhupen. We're all doing things we've never done before. I've never doing television interviews on Skype or Zoom or whatever with the likes of you. So when a challenge faces us, we must find solutions. I've offered a solution. Let's rise to the occasion. The answer is the risks and problems.
But how much of this is about
proceeding.
students? Can I put it this way, sir? Can I put it this way? How much of this is actually about interests of students, and how much of this is about Sonia Gandhi trying to look for an opportunity where the Congress party can be revived, where the Congress can think in terms of, well, regaining some of its mojo, bring all the opposition parties together? Is it that? Is that the objective?
Listen, you know perfectly well that the risks of proceeding with business as usual are considerable and serious. Now, 7 opposition chief ministers have moved the Supreme Court. Yes, many of them are Congress, some are coalition governments, one is Trinamool. But the fact is that this shows you that it's a widespread concern. It's not purely Congress party politics. Our National Students' Union of India has embarked on a hunger strike. Look, I issued a message of support to these guys. I have a surprise if I've got more than 1 lakh people have tuned in to watch this 1.5 minute message. It shows that we are striking a chord, whereas the BJP, by insisting on going ahead with business as usual, is being seen more and more as anti-students. If it truly cares about the well-being of young Indians,
but tell me, in your home state,
must listen to reason. It must listen to
Dr.
reason.
Tharoor, in your home state of Kerala, sir, where there is monsoons, there are floods, and of course there is corona pandemic, as is the case in certain parts of Andhra and Telangana. Do you think there is a case where chief ministers of these states, can the chief ministers of these states on their own think in terms of postponing these exams?
I don't think you can, because NEET is an all-India examination. So no individual chief minister can postpone the administration of an exam without putting all the students in that state at the disadvantage that others would have taken an exam that they have missed. So it has to be a national decision. It either happens everywhere and everyone benefits or suffers, or it doesn't happen. Now, the problem is, apart from coronavirus, there are also the consequences of the lockdown, Bhupen. There are people, for example, who went back home and who can't get now to the COVID examination, to the NEET-G examination centers. There are kids from poor areas, tribal areas, remote areas, with no means of traveling back to the centers where they are in cities. There are also people very sort of in metropolitan areas, even near the universities, who find themselves in containment zones from which they cannot legally leave because of the containment. So we are in such an artificial situation. How can you disadvantage those students, and only those students who A, have prepared, B, are conveniently located, C, are not in a containment zone, D, can afford to travel, or there is a means of travel? I've had messages from people saying there is no train from my village to get to the nearest the exam center is 130 kilometers away. That was a tribal student who wrote. So we are getting so many such desperate messages. I think that to conduct a national examination of such importance in these circumstances is most unfortunate. It is anti-student. It is anti the well-being of our young people. And these are the future builders and leaders of India. We need to keep them safe, not exploit them.
Right. Final question then to you.
Deadline.
Final question then to you, Dr. Tharoor. A few weeks back, when the Prime Minister spoke in the context of corona pandemic, Dr. Tharoor, the Prime Minister said, "Jaan hai to jahan hai." If there is life, then there is everything else. What does this current chaos tell you? Jaan versus pariksha, life versus exam. Is exam more important than life, Dr. Tharoor?
देखिए, Pariksha is about building a future for yourself. But Jan is about living to enjoy that future. If you end up being one of that small percentage of people who are very seriously and life-threateningly affected by COVID, then it doesn't matter how good you were in the examination, you won't have a future that's worth actually passing this examination for. So I would urge the government to think big, to think large, and to think humanely. At the moment, they are absolutely compromising the interests and safety of the young people of the future of our country. They're essentially showing the students a choice between their health and their academic future. That is wrong. It doesn't have to be that way. A different, more creative solution has been suggested to them, and I hope they will take it. They do not need to impose this terrible choice on the children.
All right. Dr. Tharoor, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for giving us your comments
Thank you, Bhupendra.
uncut.